A fresh coat of paint is one of the easiest and most cost-effective ways to transform any room and give it a brand new look. Adding some colour to tired old walls will make a huge difference and might even add some value to your place. In any painting job, preparation is the key to a nice professional looking finish. So I'll take you through the prep and show you how to get the job done right. I'm going to show you how to paint the interior of a room. Now, I've already cleaned the room out, so I'm just about ready to crack into it. Now, before we apply any paint, we're going to have to do a fair bit of prep. I can see all the cracks of where all the wall boards meet. If you have a look in the corner here, you can see a big long crack there. I can see another one over there, and I can see all the joins. There was probably wallpaper here at some point, and generally under wallpaper, there was no stopping compound or even just one coat. So, before I paint, I'm going to have to get a stopper in here, skim all these walls for me. Now, before the stopper comes in, I'm going to have to sand all these walls down and put a pigmented sealer on so it's got something for the stopping to take. So I've got a fair bit of work before we start painting. Of course, if your walls are already in good condition, you won't need to get in a stopper. And if you have a room with new wallboard which has recently been stopped on the joins, then simply apply a wallboard sealer before 2 top coats. Okay, I'm just about ready to crack in and sand these walls. Little tip, use one of these nice little lightweight orbital sanders. Really, really easy to use. And the great thing about them, they're really quick to change. Got a little bit of Velcro on the back there. So I've got a 120 grit sanding grit on here. If your walls are in pretty bad condition, you could go down to 100 or maybe even 80. But basically we just want to give the paint something to key to, so a 120 grit will probably do you fine. Now give yourself a good mask and a good bit of air protection. Sand down all the walls, brush off the dust, and then apply your pigmented sealer. Okay, I've just about finished my pigmented seal. Now the reason I'm doing this is because these walls were pretty rough and this is going to set it up for our plaster. Now, if you're in the situation where you have installed some wallboard and it's been up for quite a while and it hasn't got any plaster or paint on it, and it's started to go a little bit yellow, what we call sunburnt, then you're best to also put a pigmented seal on. That way, you're ensured that the plaster is going to key to the wall. Leave the pigmented sealer to dry for 24 hours. Then get the stopper in. Okay, the stopper's been in and the walls are looking fantastic, a huge difference. Now, as you can see, there's a huge amount of dust on these walls from all the stopping, so we are going to have to clean that down. But before I do that, I'm going to come in with my sander and I just want to touch up these architraves. As you can see, pretty rough. There's a lot of paint drips everywhere. So before I go and paint any of these, we're just going to sand them back and make them look good. Okay, they're looking nice and tidy. Now, just before I crack into it, I'm going to remove this door a couple of different reasons. One is because there's not much gap underneath the door, and so 9 times out of 10 when you get carpet down, you're going to have to trim the door. So to do this, we're going to have to take the door off, and also it's a lot better finish on the door if you paint it outside of the room. Now, to get the door off, what we're going to do is pop the pins out of the hinge and then just remove that. If you've got an older style door that doesn't have pins in the hinge, you'll have to unscrew it from the inside. Then I'm going to come in with my broom, dust the walls down, make sure everything's looking fantastic. I'm starting with an undercoat of pigmented sealer on the ceiling and walls. Then we'll paint the architraves, scotia and door with a primer. Then fill any gaps and cracks, sand and spot prime. From there we'll give the ceiling 2 top coats before we do our walls. Then we'll move on to give our walls 2 top coats and finish off by painting any doors, door frames, skirting and window frames. I've applied a pigmented sealer as an undercoat as this is the best practice after a full skim. Any painting job starts by cutting in. Use a small brush to get into places your roller can't reach. After I've cut in with a brush, I'm using a roller on the walls. Now for all my architraves, scotia and skirting and all the trims around the window, I'm using the Quick Dry. This is a fantastic product. It's going to dry in about 20 minutes and I can recoat after about 2 hours. I'm giving the door a sand with this nice little handy sander here with a 180 grit on it. I've applied my primer. Now I'm just applying my first top coat. Now for today, I'm only going to give it one top coat purely because I'm going to wait for my carpet to go down because I know I need to chop the door down. So I'm going to chop the door down and then I'll give it a light sand on the bottom where I've cut it and then I'll apply my last top coat. Now the type of paint I'm using is the same as the skirting, which is an enamel krill. This is going to give a nice solid finish and I'm going to take a few knocks. I'm using a flexible gap filler to fill any cracks around the room. And I'm using an easy to sand interior rapid filler to fill any nail holes. Now I'm using 180 grit sandpaper to sand back the filler that's in the nail holes. And then finish with a spot primer. Okay, I'm just about ready to paint my ceiling. I've already put masking tape around my scotia so I can start painting right up to that. I'm going to use my 2-inch wide brush to cut in first before I roll. The type of paint I'm actually using is a specially designed flat paint for ceilings. So if you do have any imperfections, it's going to hide it. I've given the ceiling 2 top coats, leaving the first coat to dry for 3 to 4 hours before applying the second coat. Okay, it's time to paint our walls. Now I'm using the Space Coat Flat. The great thing about this, it's very durable, it's great for high traffic areas, and it's also scrubbable. Now, so I'm starting to paint from the top of my skirting to the top of the scotia. Again, I'm cutting in first, then using my roller. Leave the first coat to dry for 3 to 4 hours before applying the second coat. Okay, I'm just about to paint my skirtings. Now I am using this waterborne enamel krill. The great thing about this, it's really hard wearing, just like an enamel paint, but the good thing about it is there's no solvent, so we don't have to use any terps to clean up, and there's no nasty smells. I'll eventually give this 2 coats, leaving it to dry for 3 to 4 hours between coats. The type of paint I'm using on my window and my door trims is exactly the same as the skirtings, except for it's a different colour. There we have it. With the proper prep and a fresh coat, we've got this room looking like it's brand new, and it was easy as.